Yo, this is Fling with DFS Army, and this is your week 6 in review. We're looking at the Millie Maker specifically and MME Strategy of top DFS Pros. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, so we're going to start at Fantasy Labs. We're going to dissect the winning Millie Maker lineup. And I've got to tell you guys, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I don't really know what to think. I'm looking at the Millie Maker. I've been doing Millie Maker reviews for 3-4 years now. I'm looking at the top lineups that have won it every week this year, and half of them have done it with the QB on stack. So part of me is like, we need to change how we think about this contest in today's NFL. And another part of me is when I look at the lineups that have won it, I'm like, there were points left on the board, and we're going to get into that. I do think there's times when you can run a quarterback naked, and I think there's valid points to doing so. But overall, I think it's very much based on lineup construction. So, for example, I heard someone say, "Well, Jordan Love naked was a good play because you don't know who to stack him with," and they're not wrong saying that. Like Christian Watson was active, Romeo Dobbs was active, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. You could throw to Tucker Craft. Like there's four viable wide receivers and a tight end. However, this lineup, this is just a one off like super lucky lineup. This is you'll see here. This is one lineup. This isn't 150. And the reason why I say that is because there was more points to be had. And if you just look at lineup construction, okay, Sean Tucker, Chris Godwin, and K. Dot, you have three players from the same team, two pass catchers, absolutely going off. K. Dotton, 38 points. We had Tucker, 37 points. He did a lot of that receiving. So in this scenario, QB plus 3, really, Baker Mayfield was the play. Baker Mayfield outscored Jordan Love. Baker Mayfield had 31 points and Jordan Love had 26 points. So, like, I totally get playing a quarterback naked if you don't know, where the ball's going to go. However, when you have a team stack that is this heavy, it doesn't make sense because this lineup gets outscored by Baker Mayfield to Sean Tucker to Chris Godwin to K. Dot and stack. And Baker Mayfield was less money than Jordan Love. So that is where I disagree with it. I do think there are scenarios where you should play a quarterback naked. I think Lamar is viable to be played naked. I think same thing with Josh Allen. Like, where's the ball going to go? But then if you're going to have like three players from the same team, like you should probably just play that quarterback. And I think had this lineup done that, it would have scored higher. But I'm coming around to it. I think it's very much viable. I just wouldn't play this way with it because the nuts was really Baker Mayfield. And by the way, that is what took down the mini max, which has more entries than the Millie Maker. It had a higher score. I believe it was 222 that took down the mini max. It was a Baker Mayfield stack. So just because of what you see in the Millie Maker, you think, you see this lineup, you think this was the nuts lineup. It actually was not the nuts lineup. The mini max, it outscores the Millie Maker almost every single week. So just keep that in mind. But sorry, I had to go on that rant, little tangent. Just because we do these every single week, and we've been seeing a different start to the year. Like half of the weeks, there's been no quarterback primary stack. So, had to talk about it. But anyways, I'm done with that. This was a Jordan Love stack, or not a Jordan Love stack, but there was a lot of stacking in this lineup. So 220 points, 116% total ownership, use all the salary. We're going to go to my article that I write each and every week over at dfsarmy.com. So make sure you are, subscribe to DFS Army, at least the newsletter, and checking out the site because a lot of these articles are certainly free. So you don't have to be a DFS Army VIP to get access to this. This is something I write every week. Just dissecting the winning lineup, looking at it from multiple angles. So we're going to start off here. there was a lot of correlation on lineup, and that's why I would say the lineup was good, right? So quarterback was unstacked, but we had Derrick Henry, had Zay Flowers, so that's one team stack right there. Now Sean Tucker, Chris Godwin, K. Otton, and Buccaneers D. That was the second one that we just looked at. So they're, one, two, three, four, kind of an onslaught stack if you include Buccaneers D. So, there were a lot of stacked players in this lineup, 155 points. So at the end of the day, stacking is still king. The day that I look at the Millie Maker and I don't see any type of correlation, maybe I'll just quit writing articles and quit doing reviews because there's always some sort of stack in it. And it was a contrarian lineup. So we're looking at 82% for the total stack, total player stacked, 6 players. And then overall, the lineup was 116%. So it was quite contrarian. And, mainly because we had Jordan Love under 10%. We had Sean Tucker under 1%. We had Chris Godwin, under 10% as well. And we also had Joe Mixon at 1%. So ate some chalk. That's what we see with Millie Maker winners each and every week. You got Henry, you got Flowers. These guys are over 15%. We got Tolbert, we had K. Otton, chalk tight end, and Buccaneers D, who were in a smash spot. So under 120%, though, on the year, we had our 110% average. We've definitely had some contrarian weeks. We have not had like a super chalk smash. We've had a couple of 140, but nothing too crazy. And then obviously Sean Tucker was the top leverage play. And this was crazy to me because there was a little bit of chatter on social media, on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days, that Tucker would be involved in the game. And the field just really slept on it. No one took it seriously. I know we talked about it on the pre-lock show a little bit. And still there was just so much value on the slate that no one was really trying to get that leverage. And Irving had a good game. He had 18 points. That was what was so crazy about it. But nonetheless, Tucker, 37 points. Joe Mixon, we did talk about this on the pre-lock show. And, this is where you want to take advantage of a player like a Joe Mixon. You got a guy that has a high ceiling. They're in a game environment where they're favored. News comes out that they're going to be playing. He's missed several games. He's going to be playing this game. And he's projected for very low ownership, like 1%. Probably when you want to play that guy, right? So Joe Mixon, very good leverage play. It's just crazy to me that both of the top running backs were in this lineup and they were both there at, less than 2% combined ownership. So this is definitely a Sunday morning build. And, I'll say with the exception of there's multiple players from Tampa being, in the lineup without Baker Mayfield, it was a really solid lineup. A lot of correlation, some smart leverage plays, very in tune with the news. And then Chris Godwin, he was actually the top scoring player on the slate, leverage off of Lamb in London. And, really that's what you're looking for at wide receiver. You just want to get guys who are going to be leveraged because off of chalk in the game, right? So Bucky Irving chalk. Yeah, let's play Chris Godwin. And then specifically wide receiver chalk fails a lot. So just looking to get away from guys like Lamb and London. Value. So, there was a lot of high priced players in this lineup. But the Tucker play, 4,000, he gets 9x. That's just amazing. And then, Buccaneers D, 6.5x from the D. And, it was a chalk D for a reason. Great spot for them. So, I think it's just overall the value between those two just really helped bring this lineup all together because you got a lot of pretty high priced players. Henry, Love, Flowers, Godwin, Mixon. So, it wasn't exactly a cheap lineup. And then, one thing I'm noticing, as I've said, we got half the weeks the quarterback has not been stacked with their pass catcher. And this is the lowest scoring Millie Maker average score that we've had, at least through 6 weeks. So if you look back, 2023 over the course of the season, it was 238 points. 2022 was 240 points. We're currently sitting at 224 points. Now, there's a lot of season left. We'll see how this changes, but got to tell you right now, based on what we're seeing, ceiling to win the Millie Maker is the lowest it's been. So, hey, I mean, I think that gives a lot of hope for people to potentially win the Millie. It's not what it used to be. 250 points. It seems much more attainable. By the way, guys, so we do a lot of content, obviously, and NFL is this show and the main content that we love. But we got NASCAR, DFS Army crushes that, does very well in NBA. Projection system is awesome. NHL, so NBA is back. We got all the sports. But right now, with NBA being back, you can get $100 off an entire season. Just pay for the entire season. Don't worry about that monthly bill coming out. $100 off. You can use code NBA24 for that $100 off. If you want to give NBA a try, this will give you the cheat sheets, the optimizer, the Discord, the breaking news that is so important for NBA. Being in that Discord, getting that breaking news, super crucial for a sport like NBA. So you definitely don't want to play a sport like NBA without that. So definitely give it a try. We're gonna take a look at the other top lineups in the Millie Maker, just kind of like the top five, and then we're gonna jump into a little bit of MME strategy of some DFS pros. If that's something you like, that's something I like to look at. I like to see, okay, what were the pros thinking in this on this slate? Like, who were their fades? Who were their, targets? Well, what amount of exposure were they trying to get? And it really helps you, kind of get in the mind of a DFS pro. So we're going to take a look at that. But the second lineup was very contrarian, and this was actually a Baker Mayfield stack. Now, it was Baker Mayfield plus Chris Godwin. It was just plus one. So you really needed two. And if you had Tucker in there, that was really the nuts. And yeah, I had David Montgomery and Tyler Algier. The thing is I wouldn't play two committee backs, I don't think. Like, it was a great spot for Montgomery, but also playing Algier, like, this very low end probability that like both of these guys like smash on this slate. Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers was on his way to like a 40-point day. Like, he absolutely, side note, like, I had a lot of Zay Flowers, and I was so pissed because the slate started and was like up like 12K between like two different sites, right? Well, with some of the players that I was on, Flowers was one of them. So he, like, in the first half, he did like all of his damage, and then he hardly saw the ball in the second half. So yeah, it didn't end up being up 12K on the day, but it was close. And watching Zay Flowers not get the ball in the second half really sucked. But he was a great play. I think in that spot, it was a good matchup for him. He delivered 25 points. Ertz, and then Demario Douglas. This is really just a Baker plus one lineup. No bring back. And then we had Montgomery stacked with Detroit D. Tyler Algier. No Carolina players. Zay Flowers. There was another stack there between Zay Flowers and Zach Ertz. And then Demario Douglas was just a one-off. So that was second place. Third place, Baker plus 3. So this is very similar to, really the lineup that took down the mini max. However, Sean Tucker was the guy, not Bucky Irving. Surprise, surprise, and definitely keep an eye on that going forward. But yeah, and this also had Derrick Henry as Derrick Henry and Terry McLaurin. Bring back Demario Douglas. So yeah, Demario Douglas did well. That's over almost 5x at 4,400, and then J.K. Dobbins did pretty well as well. So yeah, those are the top three, and I think that's about enough of that. So let's kind of jump into a little bit of MME strategy. So C Sears, interesting enough, his top lineup was a Goff lineup. When I say interesting enough, he didn't have like a ton of Goff, but that was his top lineup. And Goff did well. He did well. I liked Goff on the slate. Unfortunately, I had too much of Amon Ra. So Jamison Williams and Laporta, and that's kind of the thing. Like Goff he did okay. I think like threw a touchdown to a lineman. So that Detroit offense, like they do a lot of weird trick plays, and that type of stuff is just terrible for stacking. So that's kind of the problem with Goff. Even though you got Jamison Williams, you got Laporta, he threw touchdowns to these guys, like they didn't get there. And I mean that's just David Montgomery got two touchdowns, like it was nowhere close enough. But they got Pollard and Najee here. You had the Godwin play, but other than that, really nothing to write home in this lineup. This was his top lineup. And the reason why we're looking at C series is because he has placed. He's got like at least two, maybe three top 10 finishes in the Millie Maker this year. So he's a very exploitative player. He will go very in on one or two players, specifically at quarterback. So that's just kind of the way he plays. High exposure, small player pool, and he's been very close to taking it down with that. Placed second in the Millie this year. Now he went with Spencer Rattler, and I was thinking about doing this too, like going all in on Spencer Rattler until I looked at his scouting report and the matchup a little bit better, and it just wasn't a very good matchup. That said, if Olave didn't get hurt, how does this end up? We'll never know. But yeah, he just didn't have kind of the weapons, and I think he ended up with like 12 points, so he ended up with 3x because he was 4K, but wasn't nearly enough. But yeah, he had about half of his lineups with Spencer Rattler. But if you think of the math of it, he gets 4x, that's tournament winning value. Now, doesn't necessarily mean that you would get enough points, but if the quarterbacks like don't have a good week, like if you don't have a guy with a 30-point week who's 6K, and the highest is like in the 20s, like 16 could do it. Like we saw last year, we saw Desmond Ritter do kind of the same thing, just over 4K. So if you get 20 points, now you really have a potential to have a tournament winning lineup. What I noticed about a little bit about C series though, that I didn't like too much with like the way he built this week is he didn't have like so he had Spencer Rattler and he had Jawan Johnson. And so you already got a 4K quarterback and you're really paying down at tight end. Um I would have liked to have seen a little bit like more pay ups like at tight end, like a little bit more exposure to Laporta. Just a little bit more money spent like in other spots and not like a pay down all the way in like two spots. I just think Spencer Rattler to a Juwan Johnson was such a low probability of like that smashing. And he should have paid up like a little bit more at tight end. That's just kind of my opinion on it. But when we look at like running backs, he was flat there, and that I get because you're going all in on a quarterback, or you're playing 75 of your 150 with a 4K quarterback. So it's like, yeah, let's just get exposure to all these chalk running backs. Double the field on Jacobs. I like Jacobs. Didn't get there. Very disappointing. I loved Henry. He had a good game. So at least, you got a lot of Henry. You got a lot of the 8K back. Was under on Bucky. Under on Bijan. I didn't understand that one either. I think you would probably wanted to be closer to even with the field on Bijan in that spot. And then the other thing is he only had 2% Algier. So I kind of thought like if Bijan's not smashing and you're going to be under on him, you probably want more exposure to Algier. And only 2%. And then a lot of Chris Godwin, which was great. I love that. And obviously I think that was a bring back, right? A lot of Olave and a lot of Juwan Johnson. So Olave, you weren't going to have a good day when half of your lineups had him and he gets hurt immediately. But yeah, I was a little surprised there wasn't like more of like the higher priced wide receivers, I guess. Completely faded Amon. That worked out. Trying to see, did he have any Zay Flowers? He faded McLaurin, Amon Ra. Yeah, no Zay Flowers. Like that's just crazy to me. But and then yeah, see what he did at defense, and he had New England, and that was kind of the other thing to me. It was like you pay down at quarterback, you pay down at tight end. You had such a cheap quarterback tight end combo, and then you also went cheap defense. Um, so the 2,400 and cheap defense going against the Houston Texans. So that definitely not his best day. That's how these things go. All right, so we're gonna look at Megan Joy. I liked what she did here. And okay. So her top lineup, it's pretty interesting. She has this ability, this uncanny ability to have her top lineup be like a guy that she's like had 1% exposure to. I saw this before when she won the Millie Maker. She did it with a Joe Burrow stack when she had like 1% Joe Burrow, which her top line, it just reminded me of that. Her top lineup, Drake May to Mario Douglas and Hunter Henry. I like the lineup. I like Henry, tight end, rookie quarterbacks like to target him. So I think that was, pretty solid lineup with Henry and Bijan and Jaden Reed and Dell. Like I loved those plays. And there's Dobbins in there. So 180 points, pretty good on a slate where, the winner scores 220. But we look at her as exposures, like I like where she was going with this. We got Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, top two, Deshaun Watson, 12%. Clearly liked that game. I won't play Deshaun Watson ever. I don't care how cheap he is. I won't, but hey, I get it. But basically, Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love, and then everywhere else was flat. So I liked both those guys too. And, that's kind of the biggest thing. They're low owned. So don't want to skip that. Like everyone's on Dak, on Goff, on Lamar. Let's just play. Like, let's play Jordan Love. Let's play Jalen Hurts with that was my thought process with Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith back. Like, why wouldn't we want to play him? Had a lot of Bucky, so was over the field there. Um, over the field on Bijan. So, did well with the running backs. Like this core of running backs didn't burn you. Didn't burn her at all. Um, 18 from Bucky. Definitely, you would probably wanted to be more field weight and would have had a better day. At least it's what we found using the DFS Army Optimizer that, being field weight on a really chalk running back, um, it's kind of the way to be as opposed to like that much over, unless they absolutely just break the slate. Then obviously you want all the exposure. But I don't really think that hurt too much. Chuba was okay, but yeah, had a lot of Chuba in a negative game script, and probably a lot of both Bijan and Chuba builds, and then J.K. Dobbins, a lot of J.K. Dobbins. Under on Eckler, under on Barkley, under on Henry, Montgomery, Gibbs. So these were the fades. Same thing with Jacobs. So, it was really just I'm playing these backs. I'm playing these four backs. Yeah, five, including Pollard. And then just, flat exposure everywhere else. A lot of Hurts. So we're gonna have some Devonta. Gonna have actually more Devonta than AJ Brown. I guess the 1K price difference. Also had a lot of love, so I loved the Dobbs play here. 5,200. in Reed. So these were the guys that she clearly targeted: Dobbs and Reed for those love stacks. Filled weight on Trey Tucker. Under on Lamb. Just under on Dallas. I think that's sharp. I think Dallas is broken. I don't think you want to play Dallas stacks whenever they're going to be chalk. Drake London under there, under on McLaurin. And I also think like when it's so obvious, sometimes that's when you just want to fade that chalk. You want to play the number 2 wide receiver, the number 3 wide receiver, because wide receiver chalk fails all the time. Was a little over on Ferguson. And yeah, nothing crazy at tight end, getting exposure to everyone. Fact, do think she faded Otten though. Kate Otten. Just that does make a lot of sense. Like he got a touchdown, I think, late. But yeah, I mean, it's Kate Otten. Like, when has he ever burned you to the point where you had to have him? Detroit D. So that was kind of like I'm fading. Not only am I fading Lamb and Tolbert, but I'm gonna play the Detroit defense because they're gonna smoke Dallas, and that's what happened. Play Tennessee, so I like it, and that's why she's one of the best DFS pros. We're gonna look at one more DFS pro, one that made some money. Big money. I thought maybe a giant squid made money. It was a bad week for the pros. I wasn't really able to find, any of the normal ones that I look at making money. But giant squid, $160 minus for the Millie Maker. That'll do. So top lineup was a Baker Mayfield, Bucky, Godwin, and Ottenstack. So, you know, process was right. You just needed Sean Tucker. And this had Javante. So, wasn't the best spot for Javante, but he has looked better running the ball. So I get it. London, Dell. I loved Dell on the slate. I thought this was the time for him to have some positive touchdown regression. Unfortunately, he caught the one early, and that was kind of it. Like he didn't, you know, there was no smash game from him like I was hoping. And then yeah, this had a Drake London and Chuba bring back. Detroit D, 18 points, leverage right there, 2,800. All right, so we'll look at his exposures. Now, no quarterback over 20%. So that's one thing about Giant Squid I've noticed. Does not go all in on, uh, you know, like any of the spots. Now, he will go over for positive leverage. Like he really likes Bijan. I'm going to be plus 20% of the field, so almost 50%. And then Bucky Irving, kind of the same thing. Like I want to be a little over the field on Bucky, but other than that, like there's no exposures that are like crazy high. So clearly making an exception for Bijan and Bucky, but nothing over 40% anywhere else. Under on Henry and Gibbs there. Pretty flat in a lot of spots. So eat and chalk. And yeah, had a lot of Javante. He looked good the prior week. So I don't know. I guess I understand that. And then Black McConkey, that one ended up working out okay. He was in and out of the lineup because he was kind of hurt. Also, Patrick Surtain got a concussion early. So I'm not sure how that one would have worked out, if we play that game again. But I guess we'll find out because Broncos do play the Chargers again at some point. So McConkey is the highest exposure. McConkey and Drake London over 35 or about 35 there. Godwin, a little bit of Hopkins. I liked Hopkins. And then, one thing I noticed, the exposures didn't have a lot of exposure to a lot of the value guys because good amount to Josh Downs, right? Um, I actually did have quite a bit to Trey Tucker, but didn't have, from what I remember, like Devon Vele. Not a ton of Devon Vele. Not seeing like a ton of DJ Turner. Some of these other like, let's see, Ray McLeod, 11. Okay, so but not like 20 because clearly had a lot to McConkey. Hopkins is only 5,100. A lot of him, a lot of Bateman, and Downs and Tucker. So, these were a lot of the high value exposures. Slightly under on McLaurin, under on Flowers, under on Lamb, Mooney, and Tolbert. So faded also on Reed. So faded the Dallas passing game as well. The exception of Ferguson. Over on Brock Bowers. I thought that was a good play that just didn't work out because everyone's like looking at Trey Tucker and DJ Turner with Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams out. It's like maybe we should just play Brock Bowers. A lot of Otten. And let's see what he did at D. Houston D. That makes sense. And Tampa D. So basically saying I'm going to just attack the rookie quarterbacks. That is my game plan. So I like that. So last thing I want to take a look at before we get out of here. LOL Advantage. This is a DFS Army VIP. And it's hilarious because I saw this when I was going through the leaderboards. I like to normally look at the top 100 and see, who at DFS Army did well, what DFS Pros did well. And I saw LOL Advantage, like didn't post anything in any of the DFS Army channels. Just kind of like casually, place top 25 in the Millie Maker. Said nothing about it. And again, this was a Baker Mayfield, Irving, Godwin, Otten, Buxty. So this was really very close to what took down the Millie Maker. However, it's the Bucky Irving difference, right? It's the Bucky Irving versus Sean Tucker that you needed. So shout out to LOL Advantage Esports guy using the DFS Army optimizer, the domination station to win. And actually, LOL Advantage has absolutely crushed NFL like showdowns. I think won like 100K last year. So yeah, you could join DFS Army. You can be a VIP as well. There's a couple ways you could try it. You can do NFL. So you could try out NFL if you'd like. In fact, I will put the free offer in the video description. You can do the NBA that we just kind of were looking at with the $100 off. So you can try that code NBA24 at checkout. Or if you just want to do a 4-core membership, you can use code Fantasy Fling for 10% off a VIP subscription. I will put that in the video description. So make sure to check that out. But that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thanks for joining me. Stay tuned to the channel. If you like this kind of content, let me know. Hit that like button. Let us know who you played in the Millie Maker. Let us know what you're thinking about on this next slate. If you're already looking forward to that, make sure you subscribe to the channel because Geeks First Look NFL Week 7 DraftKings and FanDuel will be on the channel by tomorrow. So make sure you don't miss it, as well as all the other content we have coming your way, including NBA, which is just tipping off. So we'll see you next week. Take care.